Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. Today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic which Chris Lepine sums it up brilliantly in his new book called Jesus Without Christianity. What do we know about Jesus? What have we heard about him? The ones that have grown up with Christianity have a vision, very clear vision of who he is. Those that haven't will kind of know who he is, what he represents, but really what is behind all the Christianity that was placed on top of Jesus. Who is he really? What was his real mission? Or how did the message get distorted? Throughout his book, Chris explains all of this and gives us a very interesting perspective of the new revelation of the Urantia book on what really Jesus' message was, his real mission here on earth, on Urantia. So, Chris, it's a pleasure having you here. Welcome once again to The Divine Within.
Thank you. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here.
Awesome, Chris. So, I mean, this is a topic that we've all, and I'm going to, myself included, that grew up with Christianity, you know, things didn't match or didn't make sense in some cases with the story about Jesus, with his purpose. So tell us a little bit of what got you into here. What was your life experience that brought you to this moment where you write this book and you explain this to the world?
That's a great opening question. I would say that, so I was raised a Catholic and I always felt very close to God and passionate about God. And over time, I started to have a hunger for a little bit more information. And there are certain things that just didn't make sense. If, I've said, well, if I've got a very, very loving, like if God is perfect, if the if the Father is a perfect divine being, a being that is beyond the best conception of a human being I could have, if this is like the ultimate perfect being, then why is there a hell? I was taught there was a hell, right? If you do wrong, then you're gonna burn for eternity. What purpose does that serve? And then the whole idea that Jesus is a sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
sounded very, very primitive. I mean, the way it was presented was that I had sin that was on my soul. And Augustine, right, the great theologian Augustine, promoted that idea pretty heavily, and Paul promoted the idea of the blood sacrifice. So those came together, and just doesn't make sense. God would not need to do all. God lives within me, and I can contact God. He can contact me at any moment. It's just my willingness. So this whole idea of taking another being. So I had these dissatisfactions, just didn't make sense. So I started to read a lot of different things. I did some reading of some things by Paramahansa Yogananda. I looked
Mm-hmm.
into Judaism. I looked into Islam. I looked into Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism. So I did actually some religious studies at school, but overall, I felt absolutely connected to the spirit of Jesus,
Okay.
completely connected, burning within me. And eventually, a neighbor introduced me to the Urantia book. And if for the audience, those who don't know what that is, the Urantia book is a new revelation written by angels to help us get closer to God and work together as one family and really address, personal problems that we have and also work together as one people for a better world. So I found the Urantia book, and what was profound was part 4
Okay.
was the complete life of Jesus in part 4. Okay. So
Okay.
most of us, if we're into Jesus, right, you've read the Gospels and so forth, but part 4 is 777 pages about the life of Jesus, which was astounding. And it was a leap of faith for me. I had to do a little bit of reading and praying, but eventually I got to the point where I said, well, God loves us so much, he's giving us more information. We're not
Yeah.
just stuck with these fragmented and distorted and changed historical records. So that got me moving on that journey. And what I realized over time was that, and this is over decades, this was in 1980, I found the Urantia book. What
Okay.
I realized is that the vast majority of people have a very high regard for Jesus. And then a lot of people have a actual experience, a close relationship with Jesus.
Okay.
A lot of people. And I thought, well, what's the issue? And I think the issue was that people thought or still think that Jesus and Christianity are one thing, that you
Okay.
cannot have Jesus without Christianity, and that Christianity owns Jesus. They make up all the rules, and that's the only way to get to Jesus, which is, of course, not true.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that much of what is taught in Christianity is not anything that Jesus taught. It maybe is what Moses taught, or what Paul taught, or Augustine taught, or church fathers. But I had a guest
Okay.
on my podcast yesterday that articulated a lot of this because he was a fundamentalist Christian. But
Okay.
in the end, so the purpose of this book is to help people to deconstruct, remove a lot of the misconceptions about Jesus and false teachings about Jesus, so they can experience his teachings fresh and then have a deeper experience of Jesus and all the and the positive results from his original teachings, which are unlimited.
I
And
think this is very important. I mean, just real quick, what you're saying, it's to unlearn what probably we have already learned. It's to get all these distorted concepts that kind of,
Mhm.
shackle us. I think, and I mean, I mean, you gave me a lot of information here, but I can relate to
Hope
a
that
lot of
wasn't too
what.
long an answer.
No, 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 no. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's good enough to kind of take it apart. I mean, and you mentioned hell, and I think this is very important. I mean, these are some constructs that, although there is evil, there is the potential for evil in the world, there is
Mhm.
no place, where for eternal damnation. That's I think one of the great differences, and I think you're gonna explain this further. But I mean, those are the things that I question myself, and I'm
Mm.
I see that in your experience and in your, your search for truth, your search for spiritual meaning. You found different practices, different religions, and I think each one holds a bit of truth everywhere. But in the essence, and I agree with you. You take them all down. There is Jesus. That personal relationship
Mhm.
or that spirit of Jesus that you felt close to, which, like you're saying, is not owned by Christianity, although it kind of claims
Mhm.
the copyrights, but it's not the same
Yeah.
thing. One thing is Christianity, which is, the religion about Jesus that these Augustine, Paul, and whomever kind of throughout 2,000 years brought to us. But when we strip this all apart, we find the message of Jesus, and not only the message. I think the model of living, which is
Mhm.
very important that we understand. And I think this is why it's so important in the Urantia book that we do not only see that glorified divine Jesus, which is
Mhm.
part of his nature, but that we also see that human nature, that practical nature that we can all relate to and understand behind, and makes him very approachable, very, not that we're going to
Absolutely.
become God like him in that
No.
sense, but it approaches us. So just to sum up a little bit on those things, how that changed you inside before you came into these realization and you started later, sharing this with the world.
How did the deconstruction help me?
Yes. Yes.
I think, yeah, the first big one was I was obsessed with, well, not obsessed, but I thought a lot about, am I going to hell? Yeah, because that's a Catholic teaching. They don't
Yeah.
overemphasize this, but I was worried about it as a kid. So I had this anxiety that was there all the time. I thought, well, am I doing the right thing? Is that a mortal sin? Is that a venal sin? No, what have I done wrong? And so what happened was that noise, once I learned the original teachings of Jesus, and I had the fuller revelation of the Father, God the Father,
Mhm.
then I just let go of that idea of hell. It's gone.
Okay.
There is no hell. God wouldn't do that. I mean, certainly there are consequences to being cruel, hurting other people. In the end, I think you destroy yourself and you don't go on.
Yeah.
But what it did was it gave me more confidence. It gave me the confidence to risk more. It gave me more energy. We all go through big challenges in life. You have disappointments. It's just the nature of life. And either you're going to keep trying or you're going to give up or you're going to ask someone else to do it for you. And what this did for me is it helped me to regenerate, to embrace God and move forward um, in a big way. But the other thing it did was the original teachings of Jesus, and especially seeing Jesus more fully in the Urantia book, is that it revealed God the Father more clearly.
Yeah,
And
this
we
is
know
important.
that God the Father lived through Jesus in human form. So every time we see Jesus acting, behaving, doing things, that's exactly what the Father would do. And that's it. It made the Father more understandable to me and gave me a much closer relationship. So I'd say overall that with the broadest strokes, that's what it did.
And I like this concept, and I mean, talking with a lot of other readers, and that explaining this concept of how Jesus brought the Father to us, made him
Mhm,
approachable. And I like the what Don Clementon explained.
mm,
He said that heaven is perfect. It's a we can't really fathom. That
mhm,
goes beyond our mortal brains. So how can we relate to something that is beyond our capacity
mhm.
to understand?
Right.
Well, Jesus makes him relatable. Jesus brings that nature, that loving nature, that makes
Mhm.
him approachable and makes him understandable. So I really like that explanation, that we see that perfection,
Absolutely.
played
Mhm,
out in our mortal and time bound
mhm.
existence, right?
Yeah, no, it's so true. And you think about it, let's think about this logically that and I want to go back to the Jesus thing. The reason a lot of people will reject Jesus is because they had a bad church experience or um
Yeah.
just the teachings don't make sense at all. And then I think a lot of the reason that people reject God, whether you think of God as a father or mother, whatever, is that they had a bad experience, but also they just want to do things their way with no input. So I think what the true religion and the life of Jesus shows us is that he completely embraced what the Father wanted him to do. And it was the most tremendous liberation and enablement and empowerment possible.
Doing the
That's
Father's
that's
will.
doing the Father's will, and it doesn't mean you're a robot. That's a
Yeah.
lot of people have a misconception, and we have a big problem in the world today of people being ultra individualistic and selfish, people reforming tribal groups, nations beginning to shatter along certain lines. Uh, you know, marriage problems are up, mental health problems are up, disease is increasing, at least in the Western world. It's not good. And the root of this is selfishness. The root of it is materialism and selfishness. And what Jesus showed is a life, and his religion was a life of self forgetful service. And in the end, if you're materialistic and selfish, you think, I need to have my way. I need to have my way. Then I'll have the most fulfillment, the most joy. But actually, it's the opposite. The more
Yeah.
you give, it doesn't mean you're a fool or a blank check. It doesn't mean you allow yourself to be abused, but the more you give, the more you help your friends, the more you live a meaningful life, the greater your experience, the greater your joy in the
Exactly.
end.
It's a bit kind of a paradox. The more selfless you are, the more devoted to service to others.
Hmm.
The less that you take yourself so seriously,
Right.
the more growth you
Mm.
have, because you're not the center of the world. I think this is very important because I agree completely with you. And it goes back
Hmm.
to, I don't want to get into those details, but a lot of
Yeah.
what happened in the chaos that we are stems from this individuality, this materialistic and selfish
Right.
individuality that is
Absolutely.
divorced from
Hmm.
the will of God. And I agree
Hmm.
with you. It's not that we have to be servants or we have to be slaves, robots, but rather
Hmm.
understand that there is a power in a mind and a spirit that is so grand that the only thing that we have to
Yes.
do is follow that, and that will lead us the way. Because in the same sense, I believe that
Mhm,
each one of us, as we are unique, has a unique path, a unique vocation, and that many times we get lost thinking that we're going to be the
mhm,
same as the others. But really, we have to first discover
mhm.
who we are, and secondly, achieve and be the best that we can be of that version, right?
Yeah, and I think I mean, in the end, God created all of us with a unique set of talents, a unique way of
Yeah,
experiencing the world. And because he knows all that, the future that he has for us is the best possible future we could want. So if he's giving us guidance to go in a certain direction or do something, it's for our ultimate happiness and the good of others. So it's a win-win. And a lot of times when you see, we know that a lot of rejection of God, the idea of God, and there's actually a lot of that. A lot of people reject a self-conscious, loving, parental God. They reject it. Why do they reject it? I think
yeah,
because they had to reject this controlling church, and that's kind of the way
yeah,
things go. But now you've traded your I guess control from God to economic slavery, political slavery, addictions, everything. It's we as humans are incapable of proper self-control and happiness without the higher power. We're absolutely incapable, and we merely start reacting to things after that. Like Bob Dylan said, you have to serve somebody.
can you repeat that? I love that. Can you repeat that? We weren't capable. Can you 'cause so our audience
Human
can take
beings
that?
are, as just human beings are incapable of being happy and having the deepest levels of self-control if they do not have a spiritual connection from God. You say, why? Well, because without spiritual experience, you are a material being and you're
Yeah,
just reacting to the environment. You're reacting to inner urges, you're reacting to events too much. You're letting these things control you. The opinions of others, trying to look youthful forever, whatever it is, there's always something that people are clutching, and they clutch it because they want security
yeah.
in the
Which
worst
is
way. I
which
want
is
security.
yeah, it's a false
Yeah,
sense of security in the end,
it
right?
is. I want peace, assurance, security. I want you to make me feel good. And that's why people worship demagogues, political leaders, religious cult leaders, you name it.
Yeah.
They worship them. Why? Because we have a need for security. We have a need for empowerment. Well, why not get it from the creator of the universe who lives within
Exactly,
everybody?
exactly. How it's
Y-
supposed to be, and I like this. And I mean, we're not going to go into details
Yeah.
with the state of this planet because that's like 5 podcasts, to get to that. But it is
Yeah.
a moment in time, I believe that yeah, we've
Mhm,
substituted that compass from God to
mhm,
whomever we as individuals, and it's not just one thing. It used to be probably government, but now we see,
mhm.
and it's interesting
Right.
because now we see how all these false idols that we placed our faith in, our trust in,
Right.
are crumbling, and now people are,
Right.
everything is just vanishing on themselves. So how important it is to always, and I like what
Mhm,
you're saying, and I'm gonna, as always, I'm gonna mention a little bit of Peterson, but Peterson in one of his works and Maps of Meaning,
mhm,
he described that the world before, maybe it wasn't so scientific as we have it now, but we had
mhm.
meaning. Everything meant something.
Yes.
Now
Mhm,
we've transformed into numbers and inputs. We're just another brick in the wall. So how that really, if we do not have a spiritual compass, which is basically, a personal relationship with God, can
mhm,
really lead us into different idols,
mm.
false idols that are going to make
Right.
us miserable and suffer and create all the chaos that we have.
Yeah. There's no substitute for God that actually works. There just isn't. And it's people do themselves a disservice because you have to. I would say a person with a normal mind, a functioning mind, and a reasonably healthy body is going to experience God.
Yeah,
Not at the most profound levels, but that is built into us.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
built into us that if a child is raised in a kind manner correctly and given opportunities to grow and feels the love from the mother and the father, then that child will automatically recognize the same love from God the Father and God the Mother within. God God the Father, I should say, right? Fragment of the Father within, God the Mother embraces us with the Spirit around us. We're held. And it's, Jesus, the Spirit of Jesus, Spirit of truth
Yeah.
walks us along that path inward to open up to the Father. But
And it,
it's all there. If you think about, wow, okay, I don't like the way the world's going. I don't like the religion I had, blah, but you know what? I'm going to design the perfect universe. Okay, what would you have? Well, I guess somebody has to be in charge. Okay. So then you've got to have a being that's more perfect than anything you can. All right. It's kind, loving, right? That being's going to give you everything you need. All right. The being's going to help you to be happy. All right. And the being is going to let you fulfill all your good intentions. Oh, I like that. That's pretty good. And the being is going to give you all the help you need, where you need it, when you need it. Good. Okay. And the being is going to give you an eternal spiritual existence. Oh, okay. We have
sounds
that.
good. I like
We
it.
have that. People have done all
Yeah.
kinds of substitutes where, I need my needs met. They call it the universe. Oh, the universe is going to do that for you. The angels are going to do that for you. The spirit guides are going to do that for you. You'll hear this again and again and again and again and again. It's a way to avoid, I believe, embracing the experience of God within. And I know lots of people like this, and some of them are the most loving, incredible people ever. And I believe that if they are responding to their spiritual leadings within, they are fine. I don't think they may have the intellectual experience I do of God or the certain levels, but they're wonderful people. I'm not
Yeah.
putting them down, honestly. And some
It's
of them
not
I
a
really
mental
look to.
thing, it's a spiritual
No.
thing, rather.
Hmm.
Rather,
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Awesome. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.